A lot of people think you're hostile to religion. Is that?
Well, no, they wouldn't be wrong about that.
They wouldn't be wrong about that.
No, because the conditions I just mentioned, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, are not actually observed. I mean, look around the world, see what the parties of God have been doing just this week in Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iran. See what the parties of God are doing on the occupied West Bank. And see that there are Christians who want my daughter to be taught stultifying nonsense in biology class.
Yeah. Are you happy?
Up with that, I won't put.
Here's what the president said today as part of his G20 tour. I said this actually the other day, which has some people up in arms.
We have a very large Christian.
Let me just hit that again. Here we go. Here it is.
We have a very large Christian population. We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation or a Jewish nation or a Muslim nation. We consider ourselves a nation of citizens who are bound by ideals and a set of values.
Now, you got a lot of Christians up in arms. What do you mean we're not a Christian nation? How dare he say that? Actually,
well, I mean, they may not know this, but there was a resolution of the Congress in the 18th century that said it's settling the war we did have to have with the Turkish Empire, strangely enough. Over the slavery inflicted on Americans by the Barbary states, that said, America, in a resolution of Congress, that still holds.
Yeah, the Barbary.
We do not consider the United States is in no sense a Christian nation.
Right.
That's from the 18th century.
That was a treaty about the Barbary Coast.
Yes, but by the way, that was a war with Islam. I mean, the Barbary pirates and their bosses in the Ottoman Empire, headquartered where the president was speaking today, did say we have the right to make slaves of non-Muslims because they are infidels.
When you meet someone, we're talking to Chris Hitchens.
It's like saying, like George Bush's absurd statement that Islam is a religion of peace.
You don't think any religion's a religion of peace?
Well, certainly I don't. But if I did, I would not nominate Islam as the number one.
What about Quakers?
Well, I told you, my daughter goes
Yeah, that's why I bring it up.
My daughter goes to civil friends. Well, the Quakers preach a different form of wickedness, which is non-resistance to evil. In other words, when you see it, surrender to it. I'm not in favor of that either. Benjamin Franklin, in his autobiography, writes very amusingly and satirically about the failure of Quakers to take any part in the evolution of the United States, because their hypocritical refusal to stand up for their rights or the rights of others when threatened by force.
You take Gandhi to task?
Gandhi, certainly a Hindu sectarian. I mean, a lot of the troubles of India now, as I say in my book, by the way, it's called God Is Not Great.
So now in paperback, I understand.
Paperback, inexpensively but handsomely produced. Fine bookstores everywhere. I say in that, it's a disaster that India was led to independence by a Hindu sectarian who almost necessitated for any Muslim citizen of India the awful project of supporting Pakistan, a state for Muslims only, and thus partition and the amputation and mutation and dismemberment of India at the very moment of its freedom, something we're still paying for at a very high price, with the possibility of a failed Muslim nuclear-armed state right in front of our eyes right now.
You made a point also about Iraq, that although it was considered under Saddam Hussein to be secular, in a sense it really was not a secular nation.
No, well, it wasn't for at least the last 20 years of Ba'ath Party fascism, because once Saddam Hussein went to war with Iran, actually he being the aggressor in that case against the Iranians, he was so concerned to what am I trying to say, to negate the charge that he was an atheist and he was an infidel, that he proclaimed himself to be a Muslim jihadist leader. And he never stopped doing that, nor did he ever stop paying for Muslim jihadist organizations from Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Palestine to the Philippines, to Sudan. All of this, by the way, is completely on the record and absolutely provable. One way of telling someone doesn't know anything about Iraq is when they say that Saddam Hussein was secular.
What do you say to those who claim that atheism itself is a religion?
Well, that they're wrong in a way, by definition, because if you say there is no God, or at least that there is no persuasive evidence that all hypotheses for God are either inadequate or have been disproved, and that there is no supernatural dimension to life, various things can be said about you, but you can't be told that you're religious.
Atheism is more, it can be a movement, it can be cultish, I guess, but religion would not be the right word to apply.
You can be an atheist. I mean, I am one, but I mean, you wouldn't know anything more about me if you didn't know me than that. I mean, I could be an atheist and a fascist. Most fascists actually were Roman Catholics, but I could be an atheist and a communist. I could be communism, in a sense, mandated atheism of a sort. I could be an atheist and a nihilist. I could be an atheist and a beautiful humanist.
Isn't it amazing that in our country, you can't be an atheist and be elected to a national office? I think Pete Stark is the only self-proclaimed atheist in the United States Congress.
Pretty much the only one, but I mean, I wouldn't want to be without Presidents Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln, both of whom were certainly not Christians, and I would say, from internal research and other suppositions, were probably atheists, but certainly were not members of any church.
But it's almost like you've got to proclaim, at least in today's society.
I think an honest person, a person who is otherwise considered to be honest and a person of integrity, could perfectly easily come before the electorate, as Ronald Reagan did, and say, as it happens, I don't attend any church, but I hope that you won't think any less of me for that reason. I'm perfectly sure that that moment is waiting to happen.
Isn't it ironic that yet Reagan would make that statement? He was divorced, he had all kinds of family problems, and yet it was during his reign that we had the moral majority, we had the Christian coalition, and the coming together of the evangelicals as a political force in this country.
Well, that's why I think that the Republican so-called Christian right is in such a big decline now, because it became a servant of the Republican Party, and turned out only as a one-party movement. I mean, Reagan was in power for 8 years. He used to love to talk about the end times. He used to love to talk about how evolution might not have happened. He used to love to talk about how abortion might be a crime, maybe even a murder. But at the end of those 8 years, the moral majority was no nearer. There hadn't been a single prayer said in a single American school. There hadn't been a single uterus that had. You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I mean, it is for a good reason that this country separates church from state, not just so that civic society is protected from religion, but so that good religious people are not corrupted by politics.